I guess I've gotten myself on a bit of a Gradius kick lately, mostly thanks to the Gradius Origins collection, but also from the time I've spent with Gradius collection on the PSP in putting that last video together. Managing to get as far as I did when playing the original Gradius via the ladder truly made me want to push further. Instead of focusing on that arcade original, I wanted to go with an entry I always wanted to spend a little more time with, and that's 2001's Gradius Advance, developed by Mobile 21 for the Game Boy Advance. Now, this is a game you may know as Gradius Galaxies, or even as Gradius Generations, depending on where you're from. Though for obvious reasons, I'm sticking with Gradius Advance here, because that's what I've got. Like any Gradius game, the story is pretty threadbare, but enough to set things up. Centuries after the Bacterions' fortress world was destroyed, a meteorite fragment from it impacted a neighbouring world in the Gradius system. This fragment carried DNA of a weapon, which reactivated and laid waste to said world, and it's up to you, in the Vic Viper, to save the day, as is tradition. Yeah, it's a pretty run-of-the-mill setup, I know. But where Gradius Advance wants to subvert your expectations is in a number of places, starting with the options. You might not get the hitbox adjustments you saw with the PSP takes on those arcade games, but you can give yourself up to 9 lives instead of just the old traditional 3. Plus, you could pick one of 3 difficulty levels. I'll admit, even having it set to easy, this game offered plenty of challenge, so I didn't even bother trying hard. But the default medium certainly adds a lot of bullets into the mix, which you'll have to get used to avoiding. Loadout selection comes next, where you can pick one of 4 ship loadouts, similar to those in Gradius Gaiden. I do appreciate here that you get a description of what each is best suited for, your classic tradition, your wide angle fire, and so on. Though I'll admit with my preference, that wide angle one was sort of what I stuck my time with. I tend to like having a lot of coverage in my attacks in shooters, lets me sort of focus on things a little better. And then it begins, with one real neat approach space sequence leading into that first stage, with the dazzling planetary background, and plenty of lens flares for effect. This sequence, for me, just shows you that yes, Gradius is here, and it's on the go, and it's going to use every ounce of that Game Boy Advance hardware to great effect. Which makes it a damn shame you really only get this stage having such a fancy opening approach. The later stages pretty much feature a plain old starfield. All is forgiven though, because honestly, the stages do offer plenty of tricks that you're going to associate with the Gradius games. Dodging lava orbs spewing out of volcanoes? You bet. Blasting your way through grotesque biological horrors? Damn straight. Dodging weird plant extremities? Yeah, it's totally part of the experience. Moai heads? Let's face it wouldn't be a Gradius game without them making an appearance. And of course, the obligatory speed stage. Damn straight it's here. I'm going to admit, I wasn't really a fan of this particular section. I don't know how things go with the other games in the series, but the smallest screen of the Game Boy Advance, particularly vertically, really makes this one suffer here because it's very easy to miss the turn-offs in this opening section because it's just scrolling so fast. Now, joining that part in the frustration bin, as I want to call it, is the third stage, which brings over the fiery planetoid things that you get in other games, and that's fine. It's just that unlike those games, you can actually fly into them for a small bit before you're destroyed in a collision. It's not completely solid as they are in those earlier games. Now, perhaps this is just my relationship with shooters in general, but I do prefer physical obstacles to be crystal clear on where you can and can't touch them, where you've got to avoid them, so that you know that, yeah, you're going to die if you hit this obstacle. It's sort of a thing where it needs to be crystal clear. And I'll admit, so obviously I'm playing this on the big screen so I could record the footage, and I dread to feel what it would have been like to play this on an original Game Boy Advance from 2001. No backlight, a very darker screen in comparison, and that lack of a backlight would surely have made judging those safe paths harder than perhaps I would have liked it to be. Now, On the flip side, I love the second stage. Ice-themed stages aren't really common in the series, but blasting through sheets of ice to clear a path through can feel pretty tense at times, as sometimes you might need to stop firing, lest you accidentally destroy one and cause a stack of ice to come down on you at an inopportune moment. It's a bit of a shame there aren't more tricks like this in the game, as it makes Gradius Advance feel a bit like a greatest hits package, sort of repackaging and remixing various bits and pieces from older games in the series. But look, I guess it's no surprise coming from a period when handheld games were kind of treated like this. 2001 is when the GBA came out, and it wouldn't get its own identity for a while, and a lot of those early games tended to just riff on other things. Thankfully, there is some creativity with the boss fights, where they'll alternate between fighting new versions of the iconic big core style ship and dangerous installations. There was plenty of challenge here, I found, working out the tricks in order to get the weak spots. And yeah, the game gives you the voice clip to tell you where to aim, but, especially when you come back after being killed and losing all your power-ups. There were many moments of joy and relief when I managed to finally defeat them. It is a bit of a shame that the last boss is an absolute anticlimax, but especially because some of the challenges in that final stage really do try you, and it's a bit of a challenge to get through there. But of course, if you're someone who finds these moments unsurmountable, you're not locked in as a Gradius player, well, Gradius Advance offers a few tricks that give you the space in order to learn it, in order to master it. Not just for this game, but hopefully give you things that you could use in other games down the line. Give you a little courage to try those other games. Of course, I touched on the options screen earlier. You've got your difficulty level and your number of lives, and that's great for just surviving. Going for easy difficulty is incredibly helpful, as the enemy patterns are the same in the harder levels, but in medium you start getting all those bullets being added into mix, and also suicide bullets, that is bullets spawned from a destroyed enemy. Now I know you're saying that's not really that special, and I guess I'd agree, and to which Gradius Advance responds by offering up the hint system, which is accessible right from the main menu. Here you can watch a recording of any part of the game that you've been to, that you've made it to. And I think this is fantastic for just getting yourself into the mindset for approaching how you clear each section of the game. Like, it's selected checkpoint by checkpoint. Once you get to that level, you've basically unlocked it. And of course, that really covers surviving the hazards that get thrown at you, or understanding how to approach taking out the boss. On a few occasions even, I found that the strategy presented here managed to feel quite a bit different from the one that I'd employ on my own run, which sometimes gives you, a smarter way, especially because these sequences are always run with a fresh ship loadout, like you've just lost a life and you're back at the base Vic Viper loadout. And all of this goes to show you that yes, the dreaded Gradius syndrome is not in effect here. Gradius syndrome is the idea that when you get to a certain point in the game, if you die, you basically can't recover and you may as well just end the game right there and there. The fact that all these sequences are shown with a base unloaded ship means that yes, you as a player can actually clear them with an unloaded ship. And that goes a long way to making this game actually conquerable and appreciable by those who aren't locked in and, shall we say, they're not Gradius sickos. Or maybe they want to be one. Now, this also comes down to the game being far friendlier with power-up drops. And of course, it's really been balanced in order for this to happen. Now, yeah, if you are actually a skilled enough player, you manage to survive to a boss and have a low kitted out ship, you're going to do great. I did actually do a run in the game where I was using a lot of save states to just not lose a life, and yeah, the game is actually substantially less challenging if you have a fully powered up ship. But if you don't, you can make it through, and I think that's pretty neat. I mean, realistically, I haven't done a proper run of this with a 1 credit clear. I may have used a lot of save states, but that doesn't really count because the amount of times I hit reset to reload blocks. But the thing is, I feel that with a little more practice, the potential is there for me to be able to do that. And that brings the next part of the piece into play, and that's the continue system. Continues, yeah, they're as old as time immemorial, there's nothing new there. But most home versions of arcade games, or in series that are inspired by arcade games, do tend to have the sort of tradition of limiting your credit use so you can't credit feed to the end. And I appreciate that some people might not like this. They might not like having a credit system at all, that you should try and master it, all of that, I get it. But there are two selling points. And firstly, here in Gradius Advance, you have unlimited credits. It's great. Yes, you lose your score, and everything as you expect, but it means that you can practice and push your way through a painful section. You can master it, you can play it, and just keep banging your head against the wall and getting through. The second part of this system is a side effect of being a portable game. And that is, like with the hint system, which unlocks levels as you reach them, you can continue from any point that you've reached as well. This is all saved from the cartridge and is available right from the main menu. Now, if you're in the middle of playing a game and you get killed and continue, the game will put you at the last checkpoint you reached, and that makes perfect sense. But I love this because really, the Game Boy Advance is sort of that last generation of handheld system that didn't have a sleep mode. If you're playing on the train on the way to work and you need to get off because you're at your stop, well, all you do is turn the system off. You can't put it to sleep until lunch break or whatever. So it means that being able to save your progress like this, even if continuing does lose all your score and whatever, it means that you don't have to start again when you come in for your next session. It's a very handy little thing and something I greatly value. Now, I'm more than glad that I finally put the time into Gradius Advance, because I generally feel like I'm in a place where I can appreciate the challenges of the rest of the series a little better now. I don't think I'm going to be coming anywhere near close to being able to beat those on a single credit, but I'm sure I can approach them in a better mindset from this point on. Admittedly, Gradius Advance does feel like a bit of a copy of a tribute in places. Some of its levels don't offer those tricks you will see in the more powerful console entries, but as a way to get blasting Bacterions on the go, it is more than up to the task of giving you a fun, challenging, and rewarding experience. I guess if anything, I kind of wish that final stage had been broken up into 2 or 3 stages, especially just based on the ebb and flow of it, and those boss encounters. Even with these spectacular continue facilities in place, the intensity doesn't really let down between them. And working my way through that final stage was sort of like, oh, got the boss of a section, okay. Not really a chance to rest, got to get fighting on. You don't really get a chance to upgrade and rebuild yourself if you're defeated trying to take out one of those bosses before carrying on to the next. Now, this doesn't really matter though. There is plenty to enjoy here with Gradius Advance, and it's a shame that this is an entry that hasn't really seen the reissues like its arcade siblings have. It's not really a matter, sure, because I don't think hunting it down is that much of a challenge. It might be a little expensive though. And it's one that's certainly worth your time if you enjoy an experience for playing on the go, a bit of a different kind of Gradius challenge. But for me, that's really all I want to say here. Just want to close this one out, and as always, thank you all very much for watching.